Welcome to another episode of the Run the Brand podcast. In this podcast, we're talking all about marketing, branding, also diving deep into our latest projects and taking you behind the scenes of our learnings and also of the things we actually achieved and what we're hoping to do in the future. And I'm joined here today with my co-founder, Tim from Mauja Media. What are we going to talk about today?
Today we're gonna talk about a project we've actually done called Keeping It Moving, which was actually wild and fun. So we'll be taking you on a journey and of how we actually set it up, how we discovered the hero of the story, and the basic idea to give it to you in a brief form was actually to bring together someone who is deeply inspired by sports, um, almost athlete wise even, and went the full ride and is deeply inspired to build community and give back. So there was the duality of both. Yeah, that was kind of the philosophy and the goal of this.
Sweet. Yeah, I'm super excited to chat about this
Man.
project today because honestly, I think we can actually dive right into it, especially the struggles already started in not necessarily finding the subject,
Yeah.
but do you want to maybe take the listeners behind the scenes of how you actually discovered the subject? Because I feel like a lot of people, especially if they're looking for characters or subjects they want to do a mini documentary or documentary about, it's kind of difficult.
Mm.
So I think like it's quite interesting to see the whole process. And I mean,
Man,
also, yeah, there was a lot of struggles
this
with that.
this one was rough. Even the person, once he's listening to this, it was rough in many different ways, I would say, right? Because when I came to Berlin, I moved to Berlin. My first workout was with him actually, and was deeply inspired. But just we, yeah, exchanged a few sentences. I was deeply inspired by how he was coaching people and how he was talking as well. And then many months later, we were working, and we're looking for someone in sports section to film, but at the same time, someone who's inspiring, not just reach, I don't know, gold medal at the Olympics. And then I don't want to say, I don't want to diminish it, but we want people, our audiences to be inspired by someone who's a people's person and close enough, but at the same time goes the full 100%. And that's how we discovered him. Came across Aaron. I was like, yeah, this guy, he has his own running club and he trains other people, but at the same time, he always talks to you on eye level and stuff. And every training, he pushes you beyond, but at the same time, he kind of does it with you. And I'm so inspired by people that do something really good and take you on a journey as well instead of talking down to you or teaching you kind of. They're like, yeah, I'm doing this, but join me as well. And I mean, as you'll see in the documentary yourself, this guy's super fun, like super fun, super easygoing. But to make it short and come to the subject, we approached him um, actually early on, early last year summer, and then it just took a while because he is super busy. This guy, I think I rarely find people that are similar to us in like moving across the world and training other people, going from event to event. I'm like, what is this guy actually doing? But we got the story, which you can watch and see. So we approached him. It took many cycles. I mean, you were there with me as well, right? It took many cycles. At a specific point, I know I was here, and then we went for food and lunch, and we were like, "No, we're done. We are done. No, this is just not working." And we don't want to bother people as well. We want people to want it as well, but at the same time, we were like, you know what? Let's keep this going and just see if we can do it. Like last year in 2024 or not, but thank God we pushed.
Yeah.
Thank God we pushed through.
Definitely. I mean, I think also one thing that we should say, it's not that we just reached out to Aaron via text message or Instagram or whatever. No, you, especially you, actually did the effort and went through all of his classes and
Yeah.
trainings. It wasn't necessarily just to get him for the project, but also obviously because you wanted to stay fit and work out and you generally enjoyed his workouts.
Yeah.
But I feel like listeners should understand that if you want a character or like want to do a documentary about a subject, sometimes the effort you need to put in to actually make it happen is maybe going in person, introducing yourself, maybe grabbing a coffee
Yeah.
or
You need to.
yeah,
You need to.
100%. And I think that was kind of the start and you did that quite a lot. Then I actually even remember, like you said, we chatted like the whole time, trying to find a date. Like you said, he was very busy. I also remember actually at one point I was in South Africa,
Mhm.
and you were, I think, already in Sweden or maybe in
Yeah, I
Germany.
was in Sweden
Was in
already.
Sweden
Yeah,
already?
yeah, I
Yeah.
was at school actually.
Ah, shit, yeah. And I think that was our first call, our first like pre-production call, or just actually not a pre-production call. It was more of a, that was actually the first call where we were able to pitch him
Yeah,
the idea and what we wanted to do.
yeah.
That was kind of cool, but I mean, just to get to that point, it took
It
months.
took months. Not even that. We built like a whole pitch deck, right? You remember?
Yeah,
Sent it to him, got no response, and then I was like, okay, you know what? And it was like many weeks before, and then I was like, hey, I'm gonna go to his workout and remind him. So in the whole process, if we track it back, we had different multiple touch points, and the touch points were never the same. Sometimes it was building a pitch deck, sending it to the person. Then he didn't respond. Then we maybe texted. He didn't respond. Then I went to the workout and was like, oh yeah, I forgot, but in 1 week, you know what I mean? So it was like we kind of iterated the whole time. But at the same time, we gotta say as well that we didn't perfectly structure this out. It was just it's a people's business, right? You gotta keep it authentic. So yeah,
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's also the fun of it. It was kind of, it was a struggle,
yeah.
but I feel like I've never been part of a project where it wasn't an effort to make something happen. But I feel like, yes, we talked a lot about how we actually came across and started to get our character, main character Aaron, on board. But maybe we can also talk a bit more specifically about the pre-production when it comes to maybe struggles we had with location scouting, how many days and times, and all these kind of things.
To be honest, there was kind of the second hurdle. Since this is one of our first, let's say, documentaries we actually planned from the start, from the get go to the end, and location scouting took a bit. It took a bit, especially since we are in Germany.
Yeah.
And dude, you need some kind of paper for every step you take.
Yeah, I mean, if I can just quickly jump in there, I think the problem we also were facing, it was for us, the nice thing was that it was the first time actually a documentary where we
Yeah.
had control over the scenes, and we can actually like kind of build out a storyline
Mm.
and tie the locations to different scenes of our story. Yes, you do have sometimes a control in normal documentaries about that as well, but especially for our latest documentaries, were a lot of wildlife and conservation things where
Yeah.
there were so many unpredictable factors that it was rough to necessarily plan proper sequences and proper scenes.
Mm.
So it was kind of refreshing and exciting to do it for this project for the first time. The only big problem we had here this time was that it was in a short time frame.
Yeah. The short time frame was, I think, from let's say agreement of all two, like both parties, us and Aaron, to final, oh, let's say start of production. I think we had 2.5 weeks. I think we had 2.5 weeks, roughly 2 3 weeks, to proper plan it out. And thus, from our call, we kind of got his story, kind of right. During the call, we were taking notes, we were recording, wrote down the story. We had a rough idea of where the story should go because we approach him with a specific, let's say, philosophy or something we want to capture. We want to capture some a sort of something about his life that he lives, right? The sports aspect and the community aspect. So we kind of had a rough story, which was fun, to be honest. To craft a story before we filmed, that was actually fun. We've done that, and then we had to go out and get permits, especially the
True, the track. Oh, that was a whole
dude.
nother story.
Yeah, it's Germany, right?
Hmm.
So I remember we talked twice that week, like
Yeah.
twice that week, and like for 2 weeks, and most of our talk or the majority was just how are we gonna get this permit? Because we know that if we go and just film, it's Germany, you can't just do that, especially with big cameras. You can't just do that. They'll
Yeah.
throw you out, call the police, and be like, "What are you doing?" And actually, someone almost did that. But I remember we had a list. We created a list of spaces in our running tracks in Berlin. Then we moved on with emails and calls,
Yeah.
and then quickly realized, okay, due to the short time frame, we just have to call. And remember the we started filming on a Friday. We talked on a Tuesday, and until then, we still didn't have permits.
I think actually, yeah, it was actually, wasn't it a Saturday, Sunday, or was it a Friday,
Mm-mm. It
Saturday?
was a Tuesday
Okay.
morning
Yeah.
because we talked, and then the same day I called.
True, I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, and then we had like we created a list, and I was calling from Sweden the whole like everyone in that
Yeah.
list, and thank God, here's another hack we have kind of applied.
Yeah, true.
We said,
Use at your own risk. Disclaimer. Use at
yeah,
your own risk.
disclaimer.
Yeah.
Since
Asking for a friend.
Yeah, asking for a friend. But at the same time, I'm still a student. I'm doing my master's right now. So I told the guy I'm doing it for research purposes.
Like it's a student project.
Yeah, it's a student project. And he was like, oh, you know what? It's cool. At the same time, I did it because he was in the Ministry of Education and Sports in Berlin.
Mm.
And then I was like, hey, it's a school project. Can you do something for me? Is it fine?
But it's
And
something really, sorry for interrupting, but that's like something I think so smart and very like intricate to do, and that's kind of you see an information about a person. I mean, especially I think when it comes to networking or reaching out to people, I think that's something people can really take away from this.
Yeah.
Is how can you connect to a person? Do your research before. I mean, even if it was just like you could see, okay, his job title, so you immediately knew, okay,
Yeah.
if I say I'm a student, that might already give me that sort of connection I need to get a yes. And that you can apply to anything like outreach of sales, networking, marketing, or just exactly getting a location that you actually want to shoot in.
Yeah. It's actually, yeah, business is actually a people's thing. The more you do it, the different aspect of business you go into, or we now go into and discover, the more we realize it's actually a people's thing.
Yeah.
You need to be a people's person. But yeah, that was luck actually, because I think he was the third or fourth person I called that day. And everyone else was like, "Oh no, we don't do that over here. This is not by the government or run by the state or anything." And then he was the third or fourth person, and he immediately was like, "Oh yeah, not a problem." And I told him, "Yeah, we would come earlier than anybody else and avoid the crowd and the masses, and we will make sure no one else gets into it." And it was like, okay, we asked where I'm studying and what I'm studying, but except from that, he was like, yeah, it's fine. Then I called you, and then you're like, Tim, we live in Germany. Can you have this black on white?
Yeah,
please?"
definitely. Because in the end, we're rocking up there with all our camera equipment. We're ready. Aaron is with us. And then there's another person
Yeah.
not knowing about anything.
Exactly. And then I called him again and said, "Hey, can you please text us and let us know, or are you really gonna let the people know over there, especially the guys who are going to have their shift tomorrow morning?" And he said, "Don't worry, I'll sort it out." I was like, "Okay, I will just trust you." And we actually rocked up before, and I think the rest of the process you actually took over very nicely by selecting other spaces that might be well and great for the interview and great for just the how's it called?
Proximity and time.
Proximity,
Yeah.
time, how to get there with cars, and the in betweens as well. We didn't want it our, let's say, Aaron or the guy we're filming, our protagonist wait as well because he needs to go about his life. We didn't require any money for this, or we didn't pay him, so we needed to kind of structure it in such a way that he feels like, okay, we are kind of in control. We planned this nicely, and to respect to his time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you did that very well.
I think we both did, like you said. I mean, it was kind of a back and forth. And I think that's also one thing that's really important if you work in a team, that you're able to trust the other person to get things done so that you don't have to watch each other's tasks and make sure everything's on track, because you just know the other person will get the stuff done that needs to be done. I think one important thing also when it comes to the pre-production itself was, like you already kind of shortly touched on, we only had 1.5 days to film, not 2. I mean, the kind of frustrating thing was that the story had so much potential, and even now also seeing the final documentary, there is just so much potential of, if we would have had more coverage with Aaron, which totally is understandable that it just wasn't possible. He has such a beautiful and unique story. It would have been like an even more magnificent documentary, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. And I feel like that was also, like you said, kind of crucial for the whole production, just to know, okay, to especially add in buffers,
Mm-hmm.
because that's something I was actually terrible at. I was always planning something, and just I think your rule of thumb is just maybe plan double the time. Just
Yeah.
do that. It's better if you have more time in the location, and also don't forget the time it takes to get from one location to the other location. Don't just think about the shooting time, but also the transfer time. I
And
think
the
that was
disruptions in between.
100%.
Yeah.
And maybe you want to grab some food or coffee. I mean, we're all just humans. Maybe you need to run quickly to the loo. You never know.
You never know.
So I think that's something we actually did very well. Like, we actually often wrapped up locations, and not. I think there wasn't one time we were stressed.
Not at all. And both days we finished earlier
Yeah.
than we actually planned out, which I think was such a surprise. And we got everything as well. Like, it's not like we were missing footages or anything. We got it all. After that, I was so relieved. So relieved. Yeah, 100%. And to see the final
Yeah.
now, I remember this week when I was watching it again, I was like, this is such an insane story actually that this happened. Yeah. It's it's a great experience for sure.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, I would even go so far and say that at the actual production itself, there weren't many problems we were facing.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest letdown, or the biggest or the most annoying thing, was actually the weather, which you just learn to you can't control. And the thing is, we knew, okay, we were just honestly just hoping and praying it wouldn't rain. I mean, that was basically our biggest concern,
Yeah.
because we knew we're not going to be able to probably reschedule this anytime soon.
Anytime.
So for the first day, which was kind of some crucial parts of the documentary, was obviously the track session that we filmed with him,
Mm-hmm.
and also a run in the park, which unfortunately the weather was pretty bad. I think it was probably the most unappealing weather you can have for filming, which means basically the sky was completely gray, no contrast, no nothing, no sun, not even. I mean, rain even looks better, honestly.
It could have actually made it as well, to be honest. But I mean, the camera gear and everything was
Yeah.
just
No, so I think we did handle that quite well. I mean, when it comes to the gear we used, actually, speaking of gear we used, we did decide not to shoot on the red this time, because we knew we need to be mobile, we need to be flexible. We don't necessarily have time to turn off the camera, wait till it's booted up, and all these kind of things. And also, we knew we need autofocus. We only were just a crew of two this time, because it was a passion project, so we didn't have a big
big
crew of
time.
us. And yeah, we decided to use the Canon C70 and the Canon R5C for our gimbal cam, which honestly was for me the second time shooting on Canon. And no hate against Canon, but the biggest problem I actually had coming from Sony and shooting for Red, is the autofocus on the C70. Oh my word! Especially because Aaron is also, I mean, has a bit of a darker skin type, and especially in darker lighting conditions, yeah,
There's just so much you need to think of. There's so much you need to think of regarding gear as well. I mean, when it comes to gear, you are the expert. And when I see the process of how you choose your gear sometimes, I'm just like, this is so much more technical than one might think of. It's, of course, everyone sees the creative side and the end result of everything. But dude, the in between, it's a thing.
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think you just also learn a lot from your
Yeah.
mistakes, because I think there was a fair amount of times we actually chose the wrong camera gear for a certain project, which made our lives a lot harder than it needed to be. So I feel like learning out of all of those mistakes, we're kind of quite good now and being realistic. Okay, it would be great to shoot it on the red. It would be amazing. Colors would be great. It would look super amazing, but it probably not going to turn out as nice as it could, because it's actually more limiting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's actually a thing that a lot of people need to question themselves. Sometimes image quality is not everything. there's so much more important things than image quality. Yeah, I think that's actually one advice I would definitely give to especially people that are new to this.
I think another advice is actually basically what you said, to prioritize what you want to capture. This one was more a moving kind of project. We needed to be very agile. If it starts raining, move there. If this happens, move there. We planned with a lot of if then moments and if then procedures in mind, right? And I think the red is, although it's a fantastic camera, it is not suited for very agile projects. For example, I think it comes down to the priorities and what you want to capture. Do you want to capture more the still and cinematic ones, or do you want to capture the dynamic, very and be very flexible while you're shooting as well? And thus you can choose your gear according to it.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely right, and I think there's nothing else to add. But one thing I would actually say, what also made this project quite interesting, it was very different scenes that we were shooting. I mean, just to give a quick overview, I think the first one was the track and field workout. Second one was a run in the park, and then the third one was the next day, which was actually an early morning start, which was really cool. Because in Berlin, if you ever been to Berlin, you have this abandoned airfield, which is called Tempelhofer Feld, which is just stunning. And the lighting was amazing.
Yeah.
In comparison to the day before, we had sunshine. It was like nice and contrasty, early morning hours. Not golden light, but was still very nice. And it was kind of a group training session. And that was also really nice to see. If I feel like we were really relying on a lot of favors for this project and asking favors of our friends.
Yeah.
And it was really, really beautiful to see how many friends and people actually showed up for us. I remember we asked two of our friends to come and join and just act as community members that get trained from Aaron. But even Aaron reached out to his group, to his community. It's just where you can see how tight and beautiful his community is that he has built. Because I mean, he just literally let them know a day before when we talked about it, and I think it was cold outside. It was a winter morning, so you gotta understand that it looked beautiful on the footage, but it was cold. And I think 6, 7 people, 5 people showed up.
I wait, from Aaron it was 5, and from us it was
Yeah,
2
seven.
people.
Yeah, seven.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so we didn't expect to have that many people in front of the camera, but having 7 people going through a training of Aaron, like a run training, it made everything look so beautiful. And actually, the scenes that we got out of this footage, the laughing, the actually true enjoyment, was literally what we wanted to communicate.
Yeah.
So starting the day off with that shoot, we were just super hyped. Okay, it's gonna be a good day.
It was actually, because the whole thing, to be honest, it was less than 24 hours. So the props, they got the notification less than 24 hours before they had to show up. Meaning, most people say, nah, not really, or I don't feel it. And especially, again, we didn't pay them. So they have every right to say no, right? But to show up, super, super, super thankful. And I think at this stage, we can give shout out to the Fresh Pattern Collective. Absolutely beautiful. And yeah, everyone coming together. And I think one thing I want to mention here as well is the connection, right? The connection, the harmony, the symphony of people meeting up. That was so beautiful that morning. And especially between us and Aaron, and while we were handling things as well, it was, thank God, that was really amazing, because otherwise you would feel it in the stiffness in the film as well. And I think that is another thing we did not have in let's say in our power, but turned out so beautifully.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it was truly amazing to see. And I mean, also continuing to the next location, one thing that just carried over was just this excitement, happiness, and starting the day. I mean, okay, actually coming back to a point, sorry for jumping ships again, but speaking earlier of putting buffers in
Yeah.
and making everybody's lives much better, especially we are all just humans.
Yeah.
And we actually planned so much buffer time in between the first location and second location that we were able to go with his run club community and have coffee and food and breakfast, invite everybody over for coffee and food. It was just amazing. Just yeah, honestly, like you said, it loosened everybody up. I mean, people were already loose, but it just kind of built a built a stronger connection,
Yeah.
so that you actually felt very comfortable in front of the camera. And also, honestly, to give it to Aaron, he is just the showmaster. I don't know, like this guy is
Seriously,
just
this
born for the
guy,
camera.
this guy, he's so easygoing, right? I mean, he has so much many things running at the same time, so many things to take care of and be stiff about. But he's the complete opposite. He's so easygoing, does his thing, travels at the same time. This character is just sometimes just like, dude, this is exactly I want to be when I grow up.
Honestly, honestly,
Yeah.
was pretty amazing. And also seeing him go through like how he motivates people and how he, I mean, he also says it very well in the documentary. It's you as the coach,
Mm.
you enable people to be them truly themselves and make themselves feel comfortable by you just making sure that you're attracting the right people, and you're attracting the right people by just also being a good person
Mm.
first of all. So props to that. Honestly, Aaron did like a beautiful job. I mean, I've been part of a lot of run clubs, but honestly, this one is a very special one, because it's not about getting as many people as possible in the door,
Mhm.
but rather like getting people really invested into it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, after the coffee shop, all the way through the last shoot location, the energy just carried through. I think the weather also made it so much better. Especially my favorite location personally was actually the last one of the documentary, the trail
Oh,
running one. Oh, it was amazing, honestly. It's
dude,
the lighting. I mean, it was autumn. The leaves in
dude.
the forest were nice, brown and golden. So yeah, it just looked amazing.
And we wanted to shoot in summer actually.
Yeah,
We
true.
actually wanted to shoot in summer.
That's
We
how long
were,
it took.
yeah, like we were planning and racing in the approaching stage or acquiring stage of him to shoot in summer.
Yeah,
That was like kind of the goal. We didn't wanted to have too many colors, but man, in the end, watching it now or this week, I was like, the colors and especially the shot out of the car, that is priceless.
oh, true. I forgot about
Absolutely
that one.
priceless. The lens of like if I because I was taking pictures, right? I was taking pictures and trying to keep the story in mind. Was more directing.
Yeah.
With the interview and everything, you were the man in action, and running next to Aaron, running with the camera, and at the same handling the camera, looking forward, and everything at once. And then you came up with the crazy idea of us shooting or me driving and you in the back of a car and Aaron running and you basically, dude, that was insane. In the moment, I was like, wow, if God is on our side, the police won't come.
Yeah.
But seeing the shot,
It's worth it.
it's one of the most priceless moments. I was like, wow, this actually turned out nice. And then the weather, the trees in the background, and the sun.
Yeah.
And the other thing we're gonna mention here as well is the preparedness of Aaron. And I think this is another props we gotta give to him. I've been on some you way more than I did, but the preparedness of Aaron was like incredible. He came with shoes and running gear and even outfits, the right
Yes.
outfits, the right color, and different. Day one was completely different than complete day two, like just from his gear and apparel and everything. And while we're here, we got to talk about the emotions as well. So
Yeah.
because things were going, I would say, so well, not because of what we were planning or whatsoever, but just the people, you can't control it, people coming together, how the chemistry is going to be and everything. That is so much not in your hands. You can do your best, but it might not be reciprocated sometimes. But I think what made this beautiful as well is the true emotion. Aaron being relaxed and laughing in between as well as the community laughing. I think you would see it. It is so important in a documentary. People for people to show the real emotion. Everybody can tell real emotion from false or wrong or faked emotion, right? That's another thing I'm super grateful and thankful for, that it worked out so in such a great manner that it actually shows in the film as well, documentary as well. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I mean, emotions or story, this is so much more important than
Yeah.
just having the most beautiful shots. But I mean, we did also end up getting like these beautiful shots. The first day was kind of like I said, pretty disappointing. We made it work, and also with color grading, you were able to achieve quite a lot out of the footage in the end. But also coming back to this car scene, like sometimes you really need to just risk it.
Yeah.
I know we used to do that actually for another project in Cape Town as well. It was a cycling project, and it was even a bit more risky in that sense that it was like an incline and decline while filming cyclists, and cyclists obviously go a lot faster than runners, so the car was also
True.
going a lot faster. I remember back then actually the top of the boot hitting my head. I was actually for one second kind of scary, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna be knocked out. Um, but it looked so well back then that I was like,
Mm.
we gotta do this. There's this one street that usually is not too busy. It's just a 30 kilometer per hour zone. It's a Saturday, Sunday. It's gonna be okay. And but also for Aaron just to be so chill and cool about like, yeah, sure, gonna run on the street while there's
I
cars. It's
thought
all
I'd
fine.
be this guy. I'm just like, what the heck?
Yeah.
But he would say as well that you, even in our friend circle, you are the guy who is always like, oh, I know a place. That's you. So typical. I know a place.
Yeah.
And every single time we enter, it was the same in Norway. And once we get there, we're like, whoa. Everyone's like, whoa. And Jan is like, yeah, I told you so. Like, what?
But to give credit, like it's not that I know those places out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's just people did the research and done the research. So credits to all of those people that are actually finding those places
Yeah, in the
a-
community
and
out there.
sharing them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like it was the thing is coming back to the locations. It was deeply tied in with actually the story you came up with in the beginning. So the nice thing was actually for our production that we knew, okay, this location is this one scene which is about this type of topic.
Mhm.
So it was really nice and relaxing to shoot in comparison to other documentaries because we really could let's for example say um, the training session on Tempelhofer was all about emotions and the community aspect. So you could really focus while filming on capturing emotions. While let's say the track session was very meant to be very intense. So we knew, okay, we're gonna shoot a lot of fast shots, no slow motion, and we're gonna get a lot of like dynamic shots. And then for example in the park run, it was more about getting into running and one step after a time and being just in tune with yourself, which was nice because then we knew, okay, it can be like long following shots with the gimbal and we can maybe use some slow motion in it. Um, so yeah, even on the technical side, it made everything so much easier.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's also the really important thing to always figure out the right technical aspects for what you want to convey. So don't just shoot slow mo because slow mo looks cool, but what does it communicate? What does a push in communicate? What does a zoom out communicate? What does this type of shot you want to film communicate story wise? And I think if you keep that in mind, your documentaries and everything is just going to be so much better.
Yeah. I think you, of course, it comes from lots of mistakes and ups and down and just trying things out. Um, and what actually adds to your, it's like poetry to a certain aspect, right? You can have the words, but your tonality matters when you go up and down and take a pause and everything. And that same thing comes to, let's say, motion picture or imagery. When do you pace it? When is faster music better and stuff like that? And I think you get a good feel for that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it's practice. I
Yeah.
mean, we've done quite a lot of documentaries already, even some very successful ones, which we're going to talk about in another podcast. But yeah, it's just all about learning. You just gotta try. And honestly, there's just so many good resources out there. I mean, I taught myself everything about YouTube, and not saying that I'm
Same.
there. Like, I have so many more things to learn, and I've definitely so many more things I want to improve at. But I mean, nowadays it's easier than ever just to actually ask a friend or ask someone, go out, shoot, test it out, learn, test it out again, and just repeat that cycle.
Mm.
But I mean, if you're already at learning and things that we did wrong, maybe let's just summarize some key learnings and also some key mistakes we maybe did and which we would maybe try to minimize or do differently in the next project.
Yeah. Do you want to go?
Okay, sweet. Let me think about it. Actually, honestly, I haven't thought about one yet, so this is completely off the cuff. We didn't
Yeah.
prepare these at all. But I feel like one, not learning, but one thing I've really emphasized this time in this project, which I also think was really important, which I did wrong a lot of times in other projects, is that I'm generally would consider myself a people pleaser,
Mm-hmm.
which is not the best trait to have as a director of cinematography or director in general if you're working with characters and subjects, models, or whatever you want to call it. And it was for me through repetition and learning, getting better at this, that if you film someone and you're not 100% happy with the shot, just rather than saying, oh, it's okay, like it's fine, it's going to be good, I don't want to bother them doing the same thing again, do it, do it again. Ask the person, they won't be mad. And if, then so be it. You here for a job, get the best footage. And if you're not 100% confident with, okay, I got the shot, don't care, be a be a bitch, and tell the person nicely, hey, let's do it again. Maybe this time that was great. Also, when it comes to giving feedback, always tell them what they did right.
Mm.
Not tell them like, okay, no, this was not good. I didn't like that. Don't do that. No, something. Okay, that was great. I love that. Do that, but maybe change this a bit instead. And there you go. So much better, and you will be much more happier with the footage that you actually get out of the camera when you go home.
Yeah, for sure. I think something I would add as well is, let's say, the acquisition phase where we almost give up. I mean, for us to say later on during production phase that we have actually planned way better, even location wise, we had two, three different locations planned for every set and shooting set as well. Meaning we could just change depending on the light, the sun, and everything. Um, it all comes down to the mistake we actually did from the get go. We didn't plan enough time for the acquisition phase. Usually, it takes long. Most of the times, not the time you wished for it to happen in. It takes it's uncontrollable because you're communicating. It's like a sales cycle to a certain extent as well. It will take long. Certain needs might not be the right timing for it. I think we did underestimate it, which we thankfully learned out of to plan better the shooting or the production itself. But I think, yeah, just keep in mind it takes way more and way longer than you think. So start earlier rather than later, and then try to rush things through. Yeah.
That's a good one, actually. Especially like that's one I resonate a lot with
Mm.
because I feel like a lot of perfectionists also can resonate with that because they just want to wait till everything is perfect and waiting for the perfect moment. And I think everyone has been like kind of through that.
Mm.
And yeah, like you said, just start and figure it out on the way. Sometimes you just better earlier than later
Mm.
get it done. It will take way longer than you think, and especially for me, I think that's one thing. Yeah, I've never was good at, but working with you together, like it's something I've learned. Like sometimes just things take longer than you expect, and
Yeah,
that it sometimes it's good for a good reason too.
that is true. That is true as well. But I think, as we said before, it's just a lot of doing, trying, making mistakes, and you'll learn from them. I think it's just a way of life, to be honest.
Yeah.
Keeping it moving.
Keep it moving. Yeah, true. That's actually, I don't know if we actually said it already, but keep it moving
Mm.
is the title of the documentary. If you want to know why, gotta watch it. Yeah, little teaser, little cliffhanger here.
Yeah.
It will be not out yet by the time this goes live, but probably 1 week later, it should be live on YouTube as well. So stay tuned for that. I just would want to add one more key learning. Sometimes you have really high expectations in the project, especially if you do the pre-production, you plan the visuals and everything, and you get super excited because in your head, everything is just amazing and as perfect as it could be.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I think we learned the hard way, especially as filmmakers. It most likely is never going to be as good as in your head. So even with, yes, we had bad weather, but the second day was great. We get some really good shots. We get some shots where you say that, yep, that's the one. Even with all of this,
Mhm.
I still went home and was like, I'm not sure if this is to our standards. I still went home and was like, I'm not really confident in if this is going to turn out great. Not saying that it was anyone's fault, any because like we I think made pretty clear in this podcast, it was amazing. Everyone was amazing. Like it turned out as good as it could have. But still, I mean, we always keep ourselves to high standards. Um, but I would say the biggest thing is you don't even understand how much possibilities you still have in the post production.
Mm.
The way you can tweak your story, your interviews, how you can do a lot of things with extra sound design and especially color grading. But simply by you can craft a story so well in post production. It's even if you're not 100% happy with getting out of production,
Mhm.
just give it your all, and most of the times you will be able to create something great out of it just by really honing in into the post production.
Hmm. That's why people on the internet always make jokes about the editors.
They're magicians, honestly.
Because they just either get the jokes out of the footage or this. Yeah, it's a funny thing. No, but like, tell me in a short, formal sequence, how did you go about the post production? What were your
So
steps?
mm, this project was actually quite interesting because it was different than we usually do it.
Mhm.
Because we knew it's gonna be more of a mini documentary and not a large one.
Yeah.
Because with large ones, it's a way longer and more intense process where we actually even before we even go into the editor,
Mhm.
we start doing it manually or analog with like post-its or sticky notes and actually working
Sure.
out the arcs and
Sure.
spines and the storyline with different color-coded sticky
Post-its.
notes on like a whiteboard. So we didn't do that for this project, but one big help was first of all that we kind of planned the story in advance, so that made it a lot easier. But also that you already went in because I think because when we wrapped up, where was I going? I think I flew back to South Africa
Yeah,
again.
yeah, yeah. What's the wedding?
Yeah,
Yeah,
true,
yeah,
true.
yeah.
Yeah, that was the wedding. Exactly. So I was like busy for like a week. So in that meantime, you actually already went in and did cut down the interview to a point where it was really easy for me just to take different parts, move them around, cut out unnecessary things. So that's also one another tip. If you can convey the same information in a shorter way,
Yeah,
do it.
yeah,
Cut it out. Even if it's cool, it sounds nice, cut it out.
yeah.
If you can convey the same information in less time, always a win. So I was really focusing on that as well because we knew we want to keep it as short as possible.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that was this editing, the post production for this project was quite simple. Was literally just cutting down the interview, moving it in a way that it fits because the story was kind of already predetermined, which was made it a lot easier. And then it was just about selecting the best B-roll shots that go on top of it. But also when it comes to B-roll shots, I mean, I don't want to make this too long, but I think it's really important not to slam or slap random B-roll shots over your interview footage. That's also like that happens already in the production itself. You have to make sure that you shoot in scenes so that you make sure, okay, how could this scene begin? Okay, he's tying his shoes. Let's get a shot of him close up of tying his shoes. Okay, then maybe he goes stretching. Then you film him like a wide shot of stretching, then maybe a close up of his hand where he's stretching. just make sure they fit together and kind of like have a beginning and an end to it. Because if it's just random clips just put on to each other over the interview itself, it doesn't feel like a story. You actually don't take You're not taking a viewer from the beginning on a journey through the end.
Yeah.
So that's very important too. And I think basically after that, it was just about finding the right songs, which honestly, I don't know if there's, I don't want to throw shade on something, anyone, but all royalty free music platforms, doesn't matter which ones. I personally love MusicBed. It's great, but even MusicBed is not there. Like it sometimes takes so much effort and so hard to find the right music. That's one thing I still struggle the most with. And I can't wait to the day when it's easier. And I know you started to get those AI features and search functions, but they're also not there yet. But yeah, so finding the right music, and then just also, I mean, the sound design for this project was quite minimal. We didn't have a lot of sound effects because we used a lot of natural sounds, which was quite nice because we filmed most of the things outside. Um, and I think the biggest thing and the most fun thing for me is just the color grading.
Yeah.
Love it. I mean, that's the point where we make your footage look nice and beautiful. Put on some good music for yourself and
Yeah.
start grading. It's
That
amazing.
actually, I think that's definitely one of the things you excel in. Because when you showed it to me for the first time, I was like, dude, that is flipping insane. That is, I love really well calibrated colors and saturated colors. I'm a colors guy. But dude, that looks so well.
Cheers,
That was
mate.
fucking amazing. Yeah, that was pretty sick. And even the music, I think to be I remember when we were talking, you were showing it to me, and I was watching it. That the first music, after first music, I was like, yeah, this is it. This even fits to the protagonist. It fits the story and gets the viewer, the audience pumped for this. Yeah, that's the right one. So I think music wise, although it is hard because it is still something outside of your control. You need to take something that exists already. We hope AI changes that so you can just type it in and compose your own thing, your own sounds. But I think it is a beauty of it as well, right? A creator that has everything under control would almost be God.
Yeah.
But I think that's the beauty of the creative process, to have lots of things under your control and certain things not, so that you can actually your craft becomes more authentic. Because as humans, we are not perfect, right? But the outcome here is it doesn't get more golden than this. To be honest, yeah,
Appreciate that. I mean, yeah, I think the difficult thing with music is everyone just has a different taste, especially when it comes to music. I mean, if you ever had your Spotify wrapped or blend with someone, like you can just see how like music tastes differ, and that's the hard thing because obviously as an editor, if you're working alone on this project or with just a few people, you might like the song,
Mm.
but that's the thing also I would say when it comes to music, don't think about what song you like, but what same thing, what does the music convey? Does it fit the mood or the story of the scene? Yeah, I think that's one thing that's quite hard but very important because
For sure.
music audio is 50% of the video, honestly.
This is
If
insane.
Yeah, I gotta think about it that way. And it's such a crucial part. That's why if you can work with a composer, work with a professional, it's gonna make your films and documentaries so much better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we talked quite a lot about everything. So I would not say let's not track out this podcast too much.
Yeah.
We definitely also gonna do like a breakdown more specifically. That's gonna be even a bit shorter with some more visuals. If you want to like see a bit more specifically just about this project and how we filmed it, and maybe even some scenes. Yeah,
This was fun. And I would even say, yeah, thank God we didn't grow up in Berlin. Otherwise, this whole track of the whole thing would be techno, right? But
oh wow, yeah. Like
throwing shades.
I'm actually curious how many people gonna get that joke.
I think true Berliners are going to unfollow me. I see it coming, but it has to be said. It is what it is.
Sweet. Then thanks for joining me, Tim, today. And thanks again for everyone listening and tuning in. This was another episode of Run the Brand podcast, where we talk all about marketing, branding, breaking down our latest projects, but also taking you along of our personal, maybe athletic journeys and how they enhance our life and business. For example, Tim is currently training. I'm putting it out there. So just to put some pressure on you for the 4 minute mile. So if you want to also get updates on that, make sure to hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you're tuning in for this podcast. And I'm currently busy training for my Ironman 70.3. And yeah, if you guys just want to keep up with us, learn takeaways from how you maybe can improve on running your business, make sure to tune in for the next episode.
And you should actually follow him. He is putting out reels out there. I'm getting there. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. See you in the next one.
Have a good one.